Hello everyone, and a good day to all of you. Today I wanted to talk about some gear considerations for war belt setup. So I know that there is a huge amount, an absolute plethora of other war belt setup videos, but I do have a few somewhat novel ideas that I wanted to talk about here that it's for some of them I haven't seen anyone else talk about, and in others just, not a whole lot of people talk about, and I do think some of them are ideas worth considering. So to start off though, what's going to be very important to keep in mind through this is I'm just going to be talking about my war belt setup with my use case, which is generally how I use this is kind of all the basics, so I can kind of somewhat live out here out of my belt for a short term. I have my water on here, I have like some snacks and all of that, and furthermore I have all of my shared gear that I use regardless of what else I'm using. So for example, if I'm wearing my plate carrier, if I'm wearing a chest rig, if I'm wearing a different vest for, depending on what kind of rifle I'm using, everything that I want to use in between all of those is retained on this belt. So I can just kind of set up all of my rigs separately, and then regardless of what I'm using, I always have the important stuff, the essentials, right here on me. Always in a same spot for muscle memory, like my speed reload mag pouch here, which I will talk about later, and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of important to also think about how you're setting up the belt well, I usually kind of somewhat ascribe to the whole first, second, third line gear philosophy, wherein now I have seen kind of some disagreement on what a belt would be, whether it be first or second line gear, but by and large the definition is usually that first line gear is going to be everyday carry items, second line is going to be generally like a plate carrier or your chest rig or a belt, and then third line would be like your backpack or your rucksack. Now when I'm talking about this video, it might just kind of make more sense with what I just mentioned to maybe think of this as like first line gear, and then like my chest rig would be second line, then the backpack would be third. Doesn't really matter, but might kind of simplify when you think about how I have this set up and why it is set up that way. So I do like a slightly slimmer type of belt like I do have here. I used to use a pretty thick, wide, padded type of a Condor belt a long time ago, and I kind of strayed away from those types of belts now because the really wide ones, they do kind of interfere with certain plate carriers and chest rigs depending on how low you're wearing them, and they also do interfere with the waist belt on backpacks a lot. So I do like the kind of thinner Molly style as I have here. However, I don't like going as thin as a lot of the inner outer belts are now. This is kind of like the best balance where it's not too thin and not too wide. Still has enough real estate for generally everything you'd want to mount on a belt, which works well. So with that out of the way, I will have linked in the description below the full reviews that I did on both this belt and the suspenders, which you may or may not want. It just kind of depends on your body shape or lack thereof. So with that, I will actually start talking about what I have mounted on this belt and why, and kind of get some close-ups to show you what's going on there. Okay, so getting started at the very front here, you may have noticed that I do have a Cobra buckle. However, at the very start of the video, I actually had this covered. So I think that this is a very good idea to cover your Cobra buckles because they are metal, and you can see I've had this one for quite some time, so it's pretty worn in, and even if it wasn't, it's still kind of reflective, but especially now that it is worn in, there's a lot of just shiny surfaces, so covering it just helps to prevent it from reflecting. And furthermore, I have noticed that the Cobras do tend to kind of, on every rifle that I have, there's kind of a noticeable wear pattern right on the mag well from where this is sitting when it's slung. It's not going to be as bad if you're wearing like a plate carrier or a chest rig with it, because you'll have extra standoff from your mag pouches. But if you're just wearing the belt standalone, which I have been doing quite a bit lately, then you're going to see quite a bit of wear there. So I like using an actual cover, which you can see I have slid off to the side right now. This is just one I sewed myself just from just some simple elastic material. Now you'll see, I'm going to go ahead and slide this back on so you can see how this works here. So you can see right there. And this also helps to just kind of hold things in place so it doesn't loosen up. And I do have the other side taped because this side doesn't adjust, but since I need to do all my adjustments on this side, I do want to keep it clear and not lock it down. Before this, I was using a double set of Ranger bands, which worked decent. Had it there for about a year, and it lost its elasticity, so I since went to this. And it just wasn't as good of a solution because it didn't have as much coverage. So also was a bit harder to then adjust, whereas with this I could just slide it right off. So I would recommend, it's really, really simple. You can either just sew one, as I did here, or you can just pull one off of a lot of, for example, backpack waist belts. Before I had this one, I was just testing if this idea would work just by pulling one of these off of my backpack, and it worked flawlessly. So then I went to this. So I'm going to go just left to right, counterclockwise through the rest of the things I have here. Next, I have a polymer carabiner, which I have my pouches mounted to. I think that it's really nice to have a polymer one. Again, kind of the same idea as with this here with the Cobra buckle, to just prevent any shiny surfaces and to also prevent any wear to my rifles. It's also a little bit quieter. Additionally, one other benefit of having an actual carabiner that you just weave through the MOLLE here is that this doesn't actually take up a slot of MOLLE itself. So you can see I don't have anything else mounted here, but if I wanted to, I used to run a pistol mag pouch right here. And you'll probably notice there is a conspicuously, there is no pistol mag pouches or even a holster on here, which I'm going to talk about. But if you do want to run something over this, if you have a lot going on with your belt, you can. For example, you can just run this right underneath, and then you can still access your gloves and take them on and off nice and easily, and you can still access whatever you have mounted on top of it easily as well. Next over here, I do have my magazine pouch. Now, it doesn't really matter too much what type of magazine pouch you have. I specifically do kind of seek out for the one on my belt, because as I said, I use this with all of my different rigs. I do have a Tasmanian Tiger one here, which allows me to adjust it all the way up to a 417 magazine pouch, which is the biggest type of mag I have, or all the way down to like just a regular AR mag. And then behind that, I do have a flashlight. I think it's always beneficial to have a handheld flashlight. Not too much to say about the specifics on it, just having a handheld is nice. And then right behind that, I do have a knife mounted here. And again, I kind of have this set up in a way where previously I used to have a dump pouch here, and I could actually straddle it on each side. So this wasn't taking up too much actual MOLLE room. It is kind of now. If you do put a knife on here, personally, you know, I'm not planning on getting into any close quarters and having to like knife fight or anything like that. I have this because I use this for hunting. This is like for skinning and all that sort of stuff. If you do decide to mount a knife to your belt, just try to have one with a nice Kydex sheath, which I have on this one. In specific, also try to have one that has a really nice belt clip. This one locks on there really solid. However, even if you have it pretty securely mounted, I would recommend to tie it down, having a secondary method of having it attached. You can see I just have it tied with just some paracord right here. Just ensures that it won't fall off on you at the worst possible time in the middle of the woods, and then you will never find it from there. And also just think about where you are mounting your knife. Like I said, I'm not too concerned about getting this out in a hurry, even though it is in a pretty good spot where I can reach it generally quite quickly. But just try to avoid putting it right at your back, for example. That can constrict movement, and if you fall wrong on it, you can really injure your back. So keep that somewhere where it's not going to get too much in the way when you're moving, and you don't want that to kind of dig into you. Next, I have what used to be a dump pouch, which I only pretty recently replaced with a Canteen pouch. Although I do use a dump pouch occasionally to put my mags into. I did notice that I did want to carry water on my pack, because then, as I said, I can kind of just short term take just the belt, even if I need to dump my backpack and leave it somewhere else, and I still have all my basic essentials. Like I can carry some snacks in my Buttpack here, have water here, not a whole lot, but still, it is good. In my case, I would recommend having an actual Canteen pouch, because they will conform better to your body itself. This is just a cheap, you know, Chinese Canteen pouch, just kind of whatever there. But I do have a Nalgene Canteen in here currently, which I'm testing. I've had a lot of issues with canteens in the past. I think this is my 6th or 7th Canteen that I've gone through. Just a lot of them would leak or had other issues. Used pretty much every type. But this works great, you know, when I'm not wanting, for example, if I'm out at the range, if I don't need the water on me at the time, I can still use this like a smaller dump pouch, and also just put admin items in it as well, because I do have these side pockets as well. So it works nicely for that. It's kind of a multi-purpose pouch. Next is the Buttpack itself, and I'm actually using a saw pouch, or one of the larger Canteen pouches from HSGI right here. And I do like that because you can't store absolutely everything. For example, one downside of this is I wouldn't really be able to fit a poncho in here, which would be beneficial, but I do like how low profile this is, you know, at least downwards, because larger butt packs, they can kind of interfere when you're going crouching. I have noticed kind of my back foot will occasionally kind of push into it if I have too large of one, or if it's just sitting too low. So I do like to kind of mount the butt packs a little bit higher, and having a little bit smaller of one is nice as well. On the size, however, I still can fit pretty much everything I want in here. I can fit, as I said, snacks earlier. I can fit my night vision in here, admin items, like keep all my pens and all of that sort of stuff in here. And I always do carry a balaclava as well. Just if I'm out a long time and it gets colder, even if it starts out warmer, then I can still kind of bundle up a little bit more and not get too cold. And I do have my tourniquet on just a kind of open pouch on the side of it. I used to carry the tourniquet towards my front because it was easier to access. Now this right here is more so to my right side. I still can access it with both my hands. I think that's something important. Try to have your tourniquet mounted somewhere where you can access it pretty well with both your hands. It is more of a reach for me, but I still can reach it, as I said. But this way it doesn't get as filthy. And I do also have another tourniquet in my IFAK right here, which is just another kind of older, just simple condor pouch, but it does the job. And just have all the regular IFAK contents in there. I'm not a medical expert or anything, so I'm not going to go over too much of what's in there, but you know, just kind of the bare first aid essentials. And then last, talking about the absence of anything right here, where I used to have a holster mounted. So what I did want to talk about is to kind of analyze your own use case. And I know on a lot of belt setups, they will have holsters mounted. In my case, I ran a holster for well over a year, I think around a year and a half or 2 years on here. And ultimately, just listening to other people's opinions on belt setup and all of that, I realized also, just using it a bunch, that I don't really, pretty much every time that I have this belt, I have a rifle on me. So there's not really much point in carrying a pistol, in my opinion, on this belt, because it's underpowered compared to whatever I have in my rifle. Generally, it's the 7.62x51. Right now it's a 5.56, but still significantly more powerful than anything I could carry here. And then it's just more space. It's more cumbersome to walk with it. If you do run a war belt with a holster, I would recommend, what worked pretty well for me was a single strap drop leg. That was pretty comfortable, but still, it is just more added weight. It'll always kind of just sit there and be a lot more going on. So I have just removed it, and I don't have anything mounted right here now. In the future, I'll probably end up putting something here, because I could benefit from either putting my radio on my belt, which I haven't found too good of a way to do yet with the antenna, or just another mag pouch. It would be beneficial to carry a little bit more ammo on here currently, because I only have one mag pouch at the moment. And if you do mount stuff to this side, because at least for me, with how I have my belt set up, this is the side where all my adjustments take place. You can see right here. So I would recommend you can mount stuff over your adjustment side. It doesn't really cause a problem, but I would recommend to maybe keep a little bit of space free where the tail end is of your adjustment strap. Just that way you don't have to kind of be locked into one width on your belt, because right now it just got quite a bit colder recently, kind of reaching the winter, and I need to loosen this pretty much every time I go out, depending on how heavy of a jacket I am wearing or how little I am wearing by comparison. So it is nice to just really quickly be able to pull this off, tighten it up, and then just put everything back to where it was before. And that covers everything that I have on my belt. One other recommendation I would say for something I changed somewhat recently on my own belt. I used to run, because I used to have a holster on here, I used to run my first aid kit, or my IFAK, more so right about here towards my front, and that kept it out of the way of my holster draw. If you're not really worried about that, I would recommend to keep your front kind of more slick and clear. It makes it a lot nicer when you're going prone. Now, it's not at all impossible, even if you have somewhat larger pouches. I mean, you can go ridiculous and then it will be a problem, but by and large, the kind of stuff that you'll mount on a belt, it won't cause too much of an issue in prone. It will be less comfortable, certainly. So it will be a lot more comfortable if you just kind of keep it a lot less. And of course, if you do have a lot of stuff going on the front of your belt, you can always, especially with a Cobra buckle like this, you can just pop it and kind of run it open if you're in prone for a long period of time. Let me know if you have any other questions on belt setup, or also if you have any other recommendations or just your own comments on how you set up your own belt. I'll always love to hear them, because there's always a lot to learn on different belt setups and how they apply to different people's use cases. In my case, I have been kind of just refining this, and I feel like it's at a pretty good spot now after a lot of years of constantly tweaking it. And of course, it's bound to change more in the future, but I feel like this is a pretty good spot, and hopefully you found some stuff in here informative or interesting. So thank you all for watching. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.